Okay, we're live. You're watching Seattle Neighborhood Crier, and our producer today, or our interviewer today, is Cindy. All
Hello.
yours.
And I'm fortunate today because our interview that we're going to do is with Mark Solomon, and that was arranged by Edwin Beatty. We had a little bit of a handoff today, and so I'm going to conduct the interview, but we really appreciate that Edwin has taken the time to coordinate this for us. And we really appreciate Mark being here. It happens to be a beautiful day outside, and I'm sure we'll all be anxious to get out there and enjoy the summer weather that we've got going. So Mark is the Crime Prevention Coordinator, one of three in the city of Seattle. What we're going to talk about today is what Block Watch is, how it's organized in the city, how you can start a Block Watch group for yourself, how do you keep it going. We're all about engaging your neighbors, and this is one of those foundational building blocks on that. So we want to make sure we cover tools for both people who are thinking of starting a Block Watch group and those who actually already have a Block Watch group going and are looking for ways to keep it getting some synergy and some connection and discussion going. We might cover some of the larger issues that we've got in the city. We've got a new police chief that's just been sworn in, and some kind of closing up comments on things that people can do, and mostly to make sure people are aware Night Out is coming up. And so Mark's going to cover a lot of things. We're going to kind of turn them loose, and we have some folks who might chat with us and ask questions that I'll pass on to Mark as well. So Mark, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as far as where you are in the city world of things and the police department and how you guys are organized for Block Watch.
All right, great. Well, thank you for having me. As one of the crime prevention coordinators, I have responsibility to provide crime prevention services in the south and southwest precincts. So basically, when you think about that, that's basically from I-90 south down to the city limits and from the lake to the Sound. So that's the area that I provide crime prevention services. My other fellow coordinators, Terry Johnston, works the west and east precincts, basically downtown, central area, Montlake, Queen Anne, Magnolia. And coordinator Elizabeth Scott has responsibilities for those neighborhoods north of the Ship Canal. So basically, from the Ship Canal all the way up to the city limits. We also have another coordinator that works with us, Lynn Tuck. He is the Asian Community Liaison, and his responsibilities take him citywide. In terms of the different types of services that we provide, we help Block Watch to get started, support those that are already in existence, but we also do more. We do crime follow-ups, burglary and robbery follow-ups. We do home security assessments for homes and businesses. We do workplace safety, personal safety education. So there's a lot within our responsibilities that really do take us working with other city agencies to impact public safety concerns, in people's communities. The most important thing is getting neighbors together and working with neighbors to resolve public safety and concerns in their communities.
So you kind of act as that point of contact for the other departments, depending on what issue a particular neighborhood Block Watch group might be having.
Yeah, we can definitely facilitate putting people in touch with the right agencies to affect the issue they may have going on in their neighborhood. Many times we find that what a lot of folks are concerned about in their individual community may not be a police issue, but it is a public safety issue. It's a quality of life issue. And one of the things we find is that by neighbors working with each other and working with the various city departments and in partnership with police, if we can impact those quality of life issues, we can have a positive impact on public safety issues. So when we talk about getting a Block Watch going, it's not just about preventing burglary. Block watches sometimes come together because there might not be adequate lighting on the street, or there may be a problem with traffic concerns. There may be an issue with an abandoned house. Again, some of those are not necessarily police issues, but as quality of life issues, they impact the public safety of that neighborhood. And
Mm-hmm.
again, working in concert with each other, we can impact that. And as I said, putting people in touch with the right agencies to get something done. As a police department employee, I may not be the person to go to for a particular issue, but I can definitely help put somebody in touch with who they need to talk to, whether it's somebody from the Department of Planning and Development, City Light, or Department of Transportation, whoever is necessary to help address that issue that the person may have.
Okay, so that linkage role is really important. So I heard you also say we have people who may want to start a block watch because they're responding to something, but you guys also say you shouldn't wait until crime comes to you because you can take control of your quality of life, start before the problems get big. So if you were going to start a block watch and you really didn't have a crime thing that was driving you, what's the first step someone should take that is going, God, block watch sounds like a great idea. I think I want to do that.
Mm-hmm. Well, whether there's something that prompted you to want to start a block watch, like there was a burglary on the block, or if you think, this would be a good idea. The bottom line is to get in touch with the crime prevention coordinator for the particular area of the city in which you live and check on availability, see about dates and times that may work for you to bring your neighbors together, and set a date for folks to get together. It's really that simple. When it comes right down to it, block watch is about communication. It's communication between neighbors, and it's communication with police when you see something that doesn't look right. But it all does start with the neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So to start a block watch, talk to a couple of neighbors about getting together on a particular day and time, invite the rest of the folks to come, coordinate with the crime prevention coordinator for your area. One of us will come on out and meet with you and the neighbors, talk about what's going on in the community, strategize with you as to things that we can do, not only what police can do, but what neighbors can do. And then as neighbors, you make a commitment to watch out for each other. And if you see something that is suspicious to you, it probably is, and it's probably worth a 911 call. So communicate with us, communicate with each other.
Let's talk about the communicate with each other, because part of it is questions of, if you're doing a block watch, is it like in Seattle we have the blocks with the alleys? So do you think about that's a block, or do you think about the streets that face each other so that you can all watch each other's houses more easily? And then once you've figured out that configuration, do you find that most of the block watch people do it face-to-face, or have people use a lot of email, especially when you talk about organizing meetings? I go, doodle poll,
Yeah.
What's the mechanics around that?
A lot depends on the configuration of where you actually live. In communities where you have alleys, the blocks do have, on the street, the neighbors who are across the street from each other communicate, but they also communicate with the folks who are, across the alley from them in the back. So you may have one block watch that actually encompasses several blocks. We would recommend that maybe you have a point of contact for each block, so not one block captain is overwhelmed by trying to maintain a contact log for 3 or 4 blocks. But again, whatever grouping makes sense for your community, think about that. What makes sense for your community? When it comes to some communities that have cul-de-sacs, okay, that cul-de-sac could be its own individual block watch. You may have ones where the streets wind and go for several blocks, and some of those consider themselves one block watch. Again, it just depends on what makes sense for you. In those communities where you do have an alley and you have houses on the other side of that alley and you've got visibility that way, I would say include them in your block watch as well.
Okay, and then when you it's one thing to say go contact your neighbors, but it's another thing to work up the courage sometimes to go, I've lived in this neighborhood and I really don't know everybody, and here I'm going to show up. So what are some techniques, or what are good icebreakers to start working with your neighbors?
Well, one of the things that people may do is when they contact us about getting a block watch going or looking at dates and times, we can send them via email an invitation template that they can fill out, print out, and maybe approach those neighbors that they don't know and say, hey, I live down the block, we're looking at getting a block watch going, or looking at having a meeting, in a couple of weeks on a Tuesday. Here's some information for it. We'd love to have you come by. That can be an icebreaker. Or after the meeting, after we've passed out some printed materials, maybe you could take a couple of extra sets, and then those neighbors that didn't happen to show up at the meeting say, hey, we had a block watch meeting the other night, picked up some materials, are you interested in participating with us? Here's some of the stuff that we got from that meeting the other night. So those are some icebreakers that you can look at doing. But I'd say start with the folks that you know. Start with your immediate neighbors, because when it comes right down to it, as I mentioned, block watch is about communication. Get to know who's on your block. Get to know who's on either side of you. For block watch to work, neighbors do have to communicate with each other. So if you're hesitant to communicate with each other, one of the ways to overcome that is to say, okay, we're going to do a block watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Just make those first initial connections.
Yeah.
And
the other thing I would say is, again, mentioning the whole communication part, and one of the things that I encourage folks to do is when you see your neighbors on the street, wave and say hello. When you see those people that you don't know that are on your street, wave and say hello. Let them know that you see them. Let them know that you're paying attention. You send a message. By sending the message that you are, that you see them, you acknowledge them, you've acknowledged their presence. You're telling them that as neighbors you're engaged, you're paying attention, and if they're there on your block to do something that's, less than civil, they can be identified. Mm-hmm. And all you did was say hello.
Yeah, it makes them uncomfortable because you've acknowledged them, and they now know that they've been recognized.
Yeah, I mean, if they're on your block for a legitimate purpose, they're going to think, hey, nice, friendly block. If they're there looking to break into a car or a house, they're going to go, oh, wow, I've just been noticed. I better, I'm going to go someplace else. That's one of the things that, that we've noticed over time is when you see someone walking down the street, there's nothing suspicious about that. But when you see somebody walking down the street who seems to be paying more attention to who may be paying attention to them, and they're looking into people's cars, they're going into people's yards, again, if they've drawn attention to themselves and they know that people are watching, if they're there for a criminal purpose, they're more likely to go someplace else.
And you guys put together a really good toolkit, and it's on the webpage, and we'll come back and give the address that in a minute. But that is a lot of what you do is while you engage your neighbors, you also want to get smart about these things that the average citizen probably doesn't really think about. How do you detect someone who might be doing a car prowl? How do you watch out for the UPS truck? Talk a little bit about what's on your toolkit.
Okay. Wow. Well, we've got information about just general safety and prevention, personal safety in the workplace, how to report crime, how to recognize suspicious activity. And when it comes to block watch, how do you sustain a block watch? There are, car prowl prevention, safety tips for businesses, safety tips for tourists. So there's a number of things that are on our website under the safety and prevention tab that you'll definitely find a lot of information there.
Mm-hmm. And you also attend and maybe different than in other precincts, but we have a crime prevention group, we have a block watch captains group, and you're often at those meetings talking about the trends that are developing in the area,
right,
and techniques to deal with those trends. Why don't you give some examples of that?
Well, pretty much any meeting that we do, whether it's at a community meeting or an individual block watch at someone's home, we talk about area crime. We talk about, okay, here's what's going on, here are the trends we're noticing. An example would be several meetings I've done in the past few weeks. There's been a trend of cell phones being stolen. And sometimes people coming to and from the light rail or the bus stop and talking on the phone, and people come up from behind, snatch the phone out of the hand, and just run off. Another trend is gold chains being ripped off of people's necks as they're just walking down the street. So we're advising people about, when you're walking down the street, hang up. Put the phone away, because if you're on the phone, you're not as aware of everything that's going on around you. So put the phone away, be in the present moment, pay attention to your surroundings, and be aware of who and what is around you. Same thing when it comes to, the personal safety aspect of a purse snatch or gold chains being taken from people's necks. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Know who's around you. And as you're walking down the street, walk with your head up. Make eye contact with people to let them know that you are aware of their presence. We're not saying stare them down. We're saying acknowledge them. Let them know that you see them.
Mhm. Yep.
So those are examples of things that we see currently going on that we try to make people aware of. If we go into a particular neighborhood to do a block watch because of a number of residential burglaries, we'll talk about the burglaries. We'll talk about how entry was made, what items were taken, so that people have an awareness of that, and we'll talk about here's ways you can prevent that or deter it from happening. Whether it's neighbors being out and about, that in itself is a great deterrent because neighbors are present and visible. But beyond that, what can you do to make your home more secure? What kind of locks do you have on your doors? What kind of windows do you have? Do you have any obstructing shrubbery that would allow someone to work on a door or window without being seen by neighbors? So we get into the physical environment around the home and talk about what can be done from the homeowner's point of view, from the resident point of view, to make that home a less likely burglary target.
Yeah. I attended in West Seattle. We have a West Seattle Block Watch Captains Network, and they put on a full program that was just around security cameras, pluses and minuses, and how they're most useful, and the new technologies that are out there. It was very, very informative. May not apply for all neighborhoods, but just gathering that information is really good.
And there's great technologies out there. And as we look at doing a home security assessment, which is a free service that that we provide, anyone can call us up and say, hey, I want to check on my home or I want to check on my business. Can you come on out and take a look? Again, that's a free service we provide. We don't endorse any particular alarm companies or any particular surveillance systems. What we look at is what can you do to make your home more secure, your business more secure, in a very cost-effective manner. And maybe an alarm system or a camera system might be applicable for your particular situation. Then again, it may not be. We're not in the business of trying to sell alarm systems. We're in the business of giving you the tools you need to make your home more secure, whatever that takes, and we'll present you with different options as to how to make that occur.
Yep, excellent. You also put out a newsletter, and does that go to all the Blockwatch folks as well as other people who've signed up for the newsletter?
The newsletter that I put out goes to the Blockwatch participants and those interested parties within my area of responsibility. There are some folks outside of that area of responsibility who have expressed an interest, and I do send it to them as well. The other coordinators also do alerts and notifications to the Blockwatch groups within their areas of responsibility. So we don't have anything that really goes citywide from one person.
No, right.
Best to look at the SPD blotter for that.
Yeah, but that way you can also focus in on what's specific to the two areas you cover.
Exactly. A good example would be if we've got an issue going on in Westwood Village, the south part of West Seattle. The folks in the Mount Baker area may not necessarily care about that. So again, if something's happening, in the immediate Mount Baker community, then maybe the folks on Averil, that's not what what they're concerned about. So we can target messages to particular communities, but oftentimes when I do a notification, it may be area specific or precinct specific. When I do the newsletter, I send that out to all of the block captains within my area of responsibility, because I make sure the information that I'm sending is applicable to them all.
Yeah, and I know community groups get that too and disperse that on just to the regular community groups. So. Right.
So I'll send it to individuals, to groups. They'll repost it to their email list or their listservs. So quite frankly, I'm not exactly sure how many people actually get the newsletter. I know how many get it directly, but beyond that, it's probably in the tens of thousands.
Well, I know I send it to 350 at least. So.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So one of the, and this is not meant to be a trick question because I can't remember how to get there, but I know that the police department has improved its processes and its reporting so that now you can actually go online and see what the latest
Yes.
calls were. Is that related to any of what you do too? Is that where you get your data from?
No, it's one of the things that I look at because I also want to have a sense of what the folks in the community know. We have access to internal police department reports that the general public can't see. But for the most part, if people want to know what's going on in their community, there's a number of different options. There's on our website, you do have a link right on the front page for 911 incident reports. And when you first pull that page up, it shows you 911 calls received for whatever part of the city you want to look at over the past 24 hours.
That's what
And
I
then
was.
there's another tab that allows you to look at incident reports. So officers showed up, did an investigation, wrote a report, and that'll show you what has happened in the past week. You can adjust the time frames on all of those. So say, for example, you wanted to see all the residential burglaries that occurred in the um, Rainier Beach area for the past 3 months. You can actually select your filters to be able to pull that information up. Another tab that's available on that website is statistics that are broken out by citywide and by police beat, and you can look at various crime types over time. So for the past 5 years, what is the theft rate been in sector Ocean 1, for example? That's information that you can pull up. You can look at pretty much any part of the city that you're in, select the time frame that you want to look at, and be able to get that data. There was a time when people would call us up to find out about crime in a particular neighborhood. They say, yeah, I'm going to be moving into this particular neighborhood. What's the crime rate like? Now people can find that information out for themselves by a few clicks of a button.
Yep. Chester or Jet has actually got it up on the screen while you're talking, so people who
Yep.
are watching this on the video portion can actually see exactly the type of symbols that you're talking about. So that's
Right.
good.
Yeah, and it's very easy. Again, you can select filters to look at all crime types or just one particular crime type. You can choose your filter to um, so you can see what a particular time frame that you may want to look at. So there's a number of different tools that are available right on the website to give people information. Another thing that's available on our website is the ability to report crime online. Now, and it says online crime reporting. Now, these are going to be for uh, minor crimes, property crimes. Say, for example, a car was broken into overnight. You want to report graffiti. You want to make a narcotics activity report. Those things you can do online. If you're trying to report a burglary or something where there is suspect information, that requires a 911 call and it requires an officer to come out. So just want to let you know that that feature is available online as well.
I actually did not know that, so thank you.
Yeah. One other way that you can get information from police is not only do we have our the SPD blotter, which is also right there on our website, but you can follow us on Twitter. We have Twitter feeds. We actually have something called Tweets by Beat. So you can sign up for your particular neighborhood. And say, for example, right now we happen to be sitting in sector Ocean or Police Beat Ocean 1. So say Edward wanted to get um, everything that's happening in his immediate area, in his beat. So you could sign up for that, and so when there's a call dispatched to that particular area, you'll get a Twitter alert saying, okay, here's what's happening in your community. So it's one way that people can find out in pretty much real time what's going on in their neighborhood.
Great. And so let's tie that back to this group that just decided to get together. So they've got a way to see what's going on in their nearest neighborhood, even maybe if it didn't affect them.
Right.
And so they're able to say, hey, it looks like the car thefts are keep moving north towards us. Maybe we ought to do a little refresher. Do you normally find that block watches meet on a regular basis to exchange this information? How do they keep each other connected?
Well, block watches keep themselves connected in a couple of different ways. we've worked with block watches that came together because there was a particular issue in that neighborhood that drove them to come together, whether it be residential burglaries or a drug house in the immediate area. And once that was taken care of, the burglaries went down, the drug house was shut down, arrests were made. People tended to like drift off. Um, but one way that we keep neighbors together is maybe the crime issue that brought us together is not pressing, but maybe we can come together and keep in touch with each other around issues of emergency preparedness. And we're finding that a lot of neighborhoods do that. Block watch, they may have come together as a block watch because of crime, but they continue to engage with each other to support each other in the event of emergency an emergency. So working with the offices of emergency management and looking at the Seattle Neighborhoods Actively Prepare program is another way neighbors can stay together and stay in communication with each other. We always encourage people to get involved with National Night Out Against Crime, which happens the first Tuesday of August of every year. That's a great way for neighbors to reconnect with each other if they haven't gotten together in a while. It brings people together to again, to reconnect, have some fun, maybe have a potluck, block off the street, and again, just reconnect with each other to reinforce that message of communication and neighborhood unity. Recommitting to keeping an eye out for each other and recommitting to reporting crime when they see it and reporting suspicious activity.
Yeah.
So those are some ways to that neighbors come together and stay together and stay connected with each other.
Exactly.
But it does get back to that issue of, don't wait for a meeting to say hello to your neighbors.
Yeah, that was one of the things I'd seen is one year we went on behalf of emergency management. We went around to all the block watches, and first of all, they don't just have potlucks; they have big parties. I mean, they got organized games for kids. Most of these people look forward and plan for this for months, and
yes.
In truth, they do find this might be the first time that most people are meeting the new neighbors. They might have waved to them, but this does sometimes come out to be the first time that they may have been in the neighborhood for 2 months, but now they're actually getting to sit and talk about the neighborhood, the block, learning each other.
Right.
And so,
and as police department employees, my fellow coordinators and I, as well as officers, and even police command staff, try to get out to as many of the block watches that are having night out celebrations as we can. We can't hit them all because last year I think we had close to 1,400 events. So in every year it continues to grow with a number of blocks and groups that are doing night out celebrations, and that's wonderful to see.
Yeah, it's really great. It's really great to be driving through your neighborhood and go, got a detour on this block, got a detour on that block. It's just a good sign. It's really a great thing to see.
Right.
Will you guys be registering, if somebody is new to a neighborhood and they just really haven't found out if there's a block watch? In past years it's been done differently, but is there a way that somebody who's new to the neighborhood can look and see where the nearest block party is going to be? Will you have that visual map again?
Well, in terms of finding out if people register their event on our website, they have the ability to follow another link to actually post their event on a map. Okay. If someone is looking to get involved with a block watch, say again, just recently moved into the neighborhood, don't know how a lot of people in the area, I'm wondering, is there a block watch nearby? Just contact one of the coordinators. We'll check our files and see if there's a block watch nearby you. Contact that block captain and have them get in touch with you.
Yeah.
And if we find that you've moved to an area and there is no active block watch, we'll help you get one set up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It does kind of work both ways. People will go, I need to get engaged in with my block watch, and they put it off, and then night out comes, and they go, oh, here's a time I can actually do it. So I've heard it happen both ways, Right.
And some people use the night. Some people, neighborhoods do use the night out as a kickoff for the formal block watch. So they'll have the party, and then a couple of weeks later, say, okay, now let's have a meeting where we can talk about crime stuff.
Yep. So what else would you, I'm going to shift a little bit to some of the citywide safety things that have been going on recently here in Seattle. Anything else you'd want to cover on Block Watch or getting things started or your role?
Um, my fellow coordinators and I are definitely here to, be of service to help get Block Watches started and to support those that are already in existence. So anyone who happens to be looking at this is interested in getting a Block Watch going for their, for their area, don't hesitate to give us a call. You can get our information off the website, or you can just call the precinct in which you live, and they will connect you to our to us as well.
Yeah, and you listed a lot of the things that the services or the tools that you can bring to the party. So I would definitely be encouraging people to reach out and talk to you. And then there's 3 of you right now. There used to be more. We've had some budget issues during the recession, and so now we just have Chief O'Toole just sworn in this past week, and so Mayor Murray has come out and started to talk about safe neighborhoods and an initiative about doing safety walks. I know we might come and talk about that at the very end on some calendar notes that we have about what's coming up in the future. But I wanted to put in a plug for any citizen who gets involved in the budget process that we have an opportunity, if Mayor Murray is going to be able to follow through on emphasis on Block Watch and neighborhoods helping each other. One of the things we can do is show up at budget hearings and say, hey, you got to think about funding some of these activities that help neighbors help each other. So that's just a shout out to people who want to engage in the budget process and get more people like you to be out there helping people plug in. So, and then we'll be waiting to see how Mayor Murray's initiative plays out on the ground, because there's just been a lot of issues in different parts of the city recently that have a lot of people concerned. What else would you want to cover? We're within 10 minutes of kind of our time limit, and what else is free form out there that you might want to cover? I'm tapped. I don't know about you, but I'm...
Oh, one thing I definitely want to cover is we cannot stress enough the importance of calling 911 and reporting crime. In many of the meetings I go to, and many of the communities I talk to, I get a sense from those folks that, well, I saw something that kind of looked suspicious, but I didn't want to bother, or I didn't think it was important enough. Trust me, if your gut tells you that something's not right, it's important enough. Call 911. If you're debating whether or not you should call or shouldn't call, call. Let the call taker sort that out. It's better if you see something and call us, and we get there and find out, okay, it's no big deal, than for you to go, it's probably no big deal, and then it turns out that, yeah, it was a big deal. So always err on the side of calling 911. If it's not an emergency, just tell the operator right up front, this is not a life-threatening emergency, but I see something suspicious, and I want to make a report about whatever it is you're trying to report. Use the system. You're not going to get in trouble for calling 911. You're not going to be fined if we show up and turns out that there was nothing really going on. We rely on people calling 911 to tell us what's going on in the community. So, and those who have heard me in meetings before who may be looking at this, I often say, if you don't call us, if you don't tell us, we don't know, and if you don't call us, we ain't coming. So if you want a police response, you need to use the 911 system. That's what it's there for. You're not going to abuse the system. You're not going to, irritate us or bother us by calling us. That's how we find things out. So please use the system.
I know
If
that
English is not the primary language of the people that are calling, we can tap into a language line of over 180 different languages. All the person would need to do is, when they first call 911 and that operator picks up, tell them what language you need. And we can get somebody on the line, do a 3-way call with translation, interpretation, so we can get the information. So, again, gets back to that whole issue of communication. Use the 911 system, please.
We have had in the past people say, and it's kind of like you got to learn new lessons, because in the past people might have called and they'd kind of get a pushback from the 911 callers, and I think that we found out there was some disconnects with the messaging that was going out, and I think that over time now people shouldn't be afraid that they're going to get pushed back and a rude 911 operator that says, no, this is not an emergency. They know you guys are encouraging people to call in and do that.
Right, right. And again, when it comes to that call taker is trying to get as much information in the quickest amount of time as possible so that that call can be sent to the dispatcher and that dispatcher can get that call to the officer. So while this is, may seem counterintuitive when you call 911, when you first call 911 and you say, I want to make a report, at that point, let the operator take over. So it's like, make the call and then shut up. Okay.
Just answer the question. Just answer the question, man.
Let the call taker control the conversation because it'll go a lot smoother and a lot quicker. And they're not trying to be rude. They're trying to get as much information as possible to get that to the officers so that they can respond as quickly as possible. They're trying to get, what is the situation that we're about to send our officers into? How many officers do we need to send? Are there weapons involved? Are there multiple people involved? Is this a situation where someone's in imminent physical danger? Not? Oh, okay. Then, we can calm down a little bit.
Okay, and that's the difference of I just want to make a report. One question from the audience is, we've heard about text messaging in 911. Are we there yet in Seattle?
Not yet.
Have that? Not yet?
We're not there yet. I know that that's something that's in the works, but we're not quite there yet.
Okay. Within a year, maybe? Do we know?
That would be hard to say. We would have to check with our communications section to see where we are with the technology. But I know that you can do text-to-tip through Crime Stoppers, but doing a text to 911, we're not set up for that yet.
Okay. All right. That was a good question. Anything else you want to cover? I'm trying to think of anything else I had that I might have wanted to ask.
Okay.
You've got some of the precincts are undergoing a lot of change. We're kind of going through some personnel moves. The South Precinct has gotten, I think, another captain, and so we're hoping things will settle down in the South area. You have South and Southwest, right?
Correct. Yes.
So, any lasting advice last-minute advice you want to give for South and Southwest viewers in particular?
Nothing specifically for South and Southwest, but just for folks overall. Whether or not you're engaged in a block watch, get to know your neighbors. Get to know who the kids are that are normally in your neighborhood, what cars are normally in your neighborhood. We're not talking about you having to get up and get in each other's business. We are saying get to know who lives there and engage with each other. When you are out and about, walking around, take a moment to look up and down the street. When you see your neighbors on the street, wave and say hi. As I said before, when you see those people you don't know, wave and say hi. Let them know that you're aware of them. Again, communication. It really does come back down to communication.
No, and that's a great message to end on, that this is all about building community. Block watches are one way to do that, and the way you build community is you get to know your people around you.
Right.
So.
Yeah, just don't go to work or go out, come home, shut the blinds, and never interact with each other. For neighbors really are the best deterrent against crime. And when neighbors engage with each other, communicate with each other, when neighbors show that they care about their community, and some of the ways you show you care is, number one, you talk to each other. You take care of your neighborhood. You pick up the trash. You paint out the graffiti. You remove the abandoned cars or the junk cars that are on the street. Neighborhoods, they show they care, tend to have less crime. So again, talk to each other and start there.
Great. That's a nice, simple message. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We might have you back to talk more details. And
Sure.
You go off and have a nice evening. Thank you.
All right, you too. Thank you very much.
All right, and in the show notes will be links to the web pages that we covered, and that's SeattleNeighborhoodCrier.org is our website. All right, thank you. Bye.
Thanks. We done? We good?